The Legend of St. Harley of Davidson, written by José Fumero. The medieval legend of St. Harley of Davidson, as told in fragments of manuscripts, scrolls of parchment, and by the lips of many unremembered and lost tellers of tales. It was said that in a small village, one of many that belonged to that Nordic lord of the fortress manor of Davidson, Eveld the Evil, a name used by his friends and only away from his presence, a child was begotten to an ironworker, the wheel maker of carts and wagons of the village of Davidson, and they called his name Harley because of his abundant blonde curls. How could Harley's parents know that the little child lying in the straw crib would one day be a saint and be known by the peoples of the world as St. Harley of Davidson? Thus begins the legend. First, we must tell of the cathedral that was built in his name and for the sacred machine that he wrought, which brought such joy and happiness to all the lands. It was said at the first gathering of architects, artisans, followers, disciples, and bikers, for this was the name given to the riders of the sacred machine, which was called simply the bike. It was decided that the facade of the cathedral should have within its design and appearance the image of the bike. Thusly it was done by an ingenious blending of the rose window with images of St. Harley and the sacred machine, which was the headlight, the doors leading into the cathedral, the central one being the front wheel, and the side doors being the footrests. The massive columns with stone carvings bordering the doors are the suspension rods, and over the facade and roof are sections and pieces of the sacred machine. On either side of the main rose window are two other stained glass windows showing the miraculous saving of the sacred machine from Eveld the Evil, lord of the manor. From the sides of these stained glass windows extend the flying buttresses of the cathedral, which are the handlebars of the sacred machine. From a distance, the image of the bike is made visible, while up close to the cathedral can be seen the many parts and pieces of the sacred bike. It was also decreed that within the cathedral would be 6 chapels showing events in the life of St. Harley. The first chapel shows the baptism of St. Harley. It happened that one day, as the young Harley walked along the banks of the River Johns, he heard a great fluttering sound, and looking up, saw a marvelous flying bird with 4 magnificent wings, within its claws carrying a large vessel emblazoned with a bud of the wiser tree, containing a heavenly elixir. Harley stood transfixed as he listened to the music of the beating of a multitude of wings and celestial voices singing his praises. The vessels began pouring down on Harley a heavenly elixir, and from this mystical mist came images of many sacred machines, and it was given unto the youth Harley that this was his baptism into the glory of the sacred machine, the bike. Henceforth, he would be St. Harley of Davidson, the prophet, and spread the gospel of the sacred machine, the bike. When the multitude saw the 4-winged bird, the heavenly elixir, and experienced the baptism, they entered into the folds of the joy and freedom of the sacred bike. Miraculously, they found that they too were as St. Harley, all riding bikes, and thus began the followers of St. Harley of Davidson. The second chapel is the betrothal of St. Harley of Davidson. As St. Harley made his way among the peoples of many lands, spreading the gospel of the bike, he happened one day to espy a highly favored, beautiful, and chaste nun. She glanced back and was taken by a handsome man riding a strange machine. They spoke and were besmitten with love. It took place that the Mother Superior of the Mary Ann Covenant had the same day been seeking the history of her order in the cellars of the convent, and was reading, as well as she could, the old Latin that told of the founding of her order. It must be said that women at the time were not allowed much knowledge of reading. She had just made the discovery that her order was not, as she was wont to know, the order of Mary Ann. It was the order of the Marrying Nuns, a mistake in the ancient reading of the Latin. She fell to her knees, pleading to be forgiven for her poor understanding of her duties. Immediately, she left the cellars, and as she entered the cloister, St. Harley and Sister Ruby Sue, as the beautiful nun was called, appeared and petitioned the Mother Superior for freedom of Sister Ruby Sue from her vows, and begged for their union in marriage. The Mother Superior was ecstatic. It was a miracle that as she had learned of the true ways of her order, she was presented with the first expression of her mission. They were espoused and left on pink bikes, which was Sister Ruby Sue's favorite color, as were the fly-away pink Florida glasses that her order wore. Thus were St. Harley and Sister Ruby Sue espoused, and everyone was exceedingly glad. The third chapel shows the tattooing of St. Harley of Davidson and his spouse Ruby Sue. Among the followers of St. Harley in distant lands was an ancient custom of tattooing their bodies with mystical symbols, and found it proper to include images and names of the sacred machine, the bike. Upon viewing these, St. Harley said, "Verily will I also decorate my body." And he had hearts, flowers, and the name of Ruby Sue inscribed to commemorate their miraculous espousal. When Ruby Sue saw the tattoos, she became entranced and said, "So shall I cover my body with mystical symbols, and thereby exalting the sacred machine in our miraculous espousal." And so it was done. The multitude saw these and were given as followers of St. Harley to cover their bodies also with symbols, and they saw it was also exceedingly proper. The fourth chapel shows the temptations of St. Harley. In a distant nation, there was a land called Hollywoods, wherein dwelt women who claimed falsely to be followers of St. Harley and were given the name of harlots. It chanced that St. Harley came upon this land to speak of the sacred machine and its miraculous ways, but he was sorely tempted and taken by the wiles of the harlots. Two good men, Dante and Virgil, who rode with St. Harley on their sacred bikes, saw the temptations and pled with St. Harley to set aside these women who were plying their evil ways and leading St. Harley to the burning hells of Hieronymus Bosch and frozen torments of William Blake. Explained they this to him, and showed him by their knowledge and wisdom. St. Harley heard, and was sore afraid, seeing himself in the consuming flames of perdition. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and freed himself of all temptation. So it was that St. Harley, Dante, and Virgil, on their sacred machines, the bike, left the nefarious land of perdition, damnation, and the false harlots. The fifth chapel shows the saints, followers and disciples of St. Harley of Davidson. Among the followers of St. Harley and the sacred machine were monks of the orders of the Brothers Davidson and the disciples of St. Harley of Davidson. They believeth truly in the miraculous sacred machine, the bike, and spake unto St. Harley, "We shall build these sacred machines, be your disciples, and spread the word of the sacred bike throughout the lands." So it was that the sacred bike became known and spread the knowledge of freedom of spirit and encompassed the philosophy of easy rider. Verily, it was that because of their sacred work, the brothers Davidson and Harley became as saints in the heavens. There then appeared amongst the nations and lands multitudes of easy riders, these being gentle people, men and women alike, and young and old, each and every one, even unto their children, and a joyous noise rose to the heavens. The sixth chapel shows St. Harley and the sacred machine, joined by the multitudes of easy riders, followers, disciples, children, peoples of all nations, and the bike in all its glory. Rising through the clouds of the firmament, 1,000 white doves raised the sacred machine to join the spirit of St. Harley in the heavens. Gloria in excelsis. Blessed be the name of the sacred bike and St. Harley of Davidson. Thus ends the legend of St. Harley of Davidson, a legend expressing the knowledge of being able to perceive and sense the peace of freedom.